Now, it just so happens that MP who's done some talking to the surgery is the Conservative MP for North Norfolk, Duncan Baker, and he's on the line now. Duncan, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, Chris.
It sounds like you've had a little bit more success than we have. We've been trying to speak to Holt Medical Practice and get them to come on the programme and explain their thinking here. We haven't been able to. You've met them. Can you set out what their reasons are for wanting to close the GP surgery in Blakeney?
Well, look, I've been listening to your programme all this morning, and I have to say there's been some excellent contributions. I thought that the Blakeney Parish Council Chair, Lady Rosemary Few, just summed it up beautifully when she spoke to you. We have been able to speak to Holt Medical Practice. It was back in December, I believe, so quite a long time ago, and I'm pretty disappointed that they've not come on to explain what they're wanting to do here as well. Look, in a real nutshell, it's very difficult to find out exactly why they want to do this. They will say that effectively they can run their services out of Holt and Melton Constable, that with the way the situation is, being able to then stretch services into Blakeney, which they, I think a lot of people have said this morning on your show, looks very much like they have just been run down over the last few years, means that actually they can quite happily run their services from their two other sites. We're saying, no, that is absolutely not appropriate. You are in Blakeney, North Norfolk, as we know, has the highest age population in the entire country. That is higher in some of our coastal areas, such as Blakeney. And don't forget, Chris, this is servicing many villages around the area: Cley, Morston, Langham, Salthouse, Field Dorling, just to name a few, where the population is older. They don't have the ability necessarily to get all the way out to Holt or Melton Constable. And when you are older, obviously we do understand that your health ailments come in greater numbers, and therefore you need access to a doctor's surgery. What we should be doing here is preserving local services in rural areas. I'm always fighting to save the local post office or save the local bank. I never thought I'd be sitting here this morning talking to you that I'm trying to now save the local doctor's surgery. It just feels totally socially irresponsible.
Blakeney is one example we're talking about this morning, but whenever we talk about this, people get in touch from all over Norfolk saying how difficult it is to get a GP's appointment, even if there is a surgery where they live. Doesn't that point to the fact that the government's targets for recruiting GPs just aren't high enough? That's what the Royal College of GPs thinks. Should the government be doing more to recruit more doctors?
Well, you will have heard on Tuesday the primary care plan that was launched really after the back of the COVID pandemic, which, look, everybody who is sensible recognises that you have stretched services to absolute breaking point. You don't build any health service for a once-in-100-year health pandemic. We have had a series of launches of how to tackle social care, how to tackle ambulance response times. We'll have one coming up in the next couple of weeks, which is dear to my heart, to tackling dentistry, and the one on Tuesday was tackling primary care. And much of the thrust around that was to try and take off the enormous deluge of appointments now that come into GP surgeries every single morning, and try to use our pharmacists in a better way, with hundreds of millions of pounds being spent to try and help with that initiative. But, the actual figures, Chris, I know that they're often not trailed by the media, is actually pretty positive. We have made real pledges to have more doctors and more nurses. We've actually got, in the last year alone, recruited more than 5,000 more doctors and 10,500 more nurses. And we're well on our way to hitting the targets that we always wanted to deliver when we were elected in 2019. But I think this is back to a very specific issue here, Blakeney Surgery, and the doctors who are running that surgery out of Holt primarily, recognising that this is a decision that is not right for this community. We should be preserving local services. The doctors in Holt, who I, very good surgery, I work with them many times, but this decision needs to be looked at again, and we urgently ask them to reconsider. Just to put it in context of how worried the community is about this, Chris, I wrote to 1,700 households in the last 4 weeks. Now, that was because we felt that people weren't aware of what was happening. This just wasn't in the media, and this surgery was just going to be shut without people really hearing about it. And in that time, I've had 25% of people sign up on my website to give me their thoughts, which we can feed back to the local health service, please appealing to them to take us seriously, that this is not the right decision.
While we're on the subject of health services in Norfolk, we're doing a lot of different stories, but they do all marry up together. Can you tell us anything about the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Kings Lynn? We've been waiting and waiting for an announcement on that. A lot of people who live in your part of Norfolk would go there. It's their nearest hospital. We are still waiting. Do you think we'll get an announcement on its future soon?
Yeah, I do think we will. Listen, I'll be very, very honest with you. The decision on the hospital build programme was delayed because of the local elections. I think that's a very fair thing to do. They didn't want to end up announcing new hospitals or those constituencies that would be affected by not getting a hospital over the local election period. And I suspect strongly, it was always said by the party chairman, that we would have an announcement as soon as the local elections are over. They are now over, last Thursday or Friday morning. I expect that we will hear very, very soon. And certainly James Wilde and myself, who, don't forget, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital will service a large chunk of the western end of my constituency. We are desperate to see that rebuilt.